Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the CI podcast, the Comprehend This podcast. We're doing CI stories this morning, and we have a wonderful guest today. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's CI story is a good one. Our guest is David Rice, a Spanish teacher department chair, and once upon a time, full-blown textbook warrior. That's right, he was marching through Chapter 3 vocab lists like the rest of us until he realized it just wasn't working. So what did he do? He tossed the textbook, grabbed Blaine Ray's TPRS playbook, and never looked back. Fast forward a few years, and not only has he transformed his own classroom into a joyful, proficiency-focused space, but he's also convinced his department, and now even his district, to embrace CI. Basically, David went from textbook zombie to CI superhero, and today he's sharing his story, his stumbles, and his strategies with us. Stick around because this conversation is equal parts inspiring, relatable, and let's be honest, a little funny too. We'll be right back after these short videos. Ever feel like you're clinging to the edge of your teacher planner, just hoping today's lesson magically appears? Enter the CI Survival Kit, a monthly membership made for teachers who love comprehensible input, but also love not reinventing the wheel every Sunday night. Each month, you get fresh, ready-to-use lessons, time-saving tools, and just enough structure to keep your teaching life together. No stress, no guilt, just monthly help from someone who gets it. Sign up at mm.us/survival and let the survival kit do the heavy lifting for once.
Welcome to Comprehend This, real talk for real language teachers. No drills, no dry theory, just honest stories, practical ideas, and a reminder you're not alone in the CI trenches. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Mr. David Rice. How are we doing this morning?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent for a Sunday morning.
Awesome.
Give us
If
a
you
little
see
bit
a couple
about...
of cats walk by, I got joined by my cats. I don't know why.
I just shut my door. I have 2 dogs, and they'll bark. So I shut my door on them. Tell us a little bit about yourself that I haven't already talked about in that little intro, just to get so people get to know you a little bit.
Okay, my name is David Rice, obviously. I am a Spanish teacher in Memphis, Shelby County Schools in Tennessee. I've been teaching forever. And as Scott said, I was a textbook teacher, and now I'm a full-blown TPRS CI teacher now. So it's been a journey. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, served in Iraq, etc. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service. We appreciate that.
No problem.
So, tell us what your teaching looked like before you went to CI. So people, because we have a lot of people on here who are textbook teachers who are thinking about transitioning. We've got textbook teachers who are dabbling in transitioning. We got textbook teachers who want to transition over but are terrified. So let us know where you started from so they can kind of get feel a little relatable there.
So when I graduated college and I got my first teaching job at Texas High School in Texarkana, Texas, I went in, and the textbook of choice at that school at the time was Realidades. And so all my training prior to getting the job at Texas High was, my mentor teachers, they were textbook teachers, and I didn't know what CI was at the time. I didn't know there was anything other than turn to page 3 and let's learn some vocabulary. Go to page 4, let's do this activity, turn it in, get a grade, and so on and so forth. So that was the world. And there was, I remember when I was setting up my classroom, there in the classroom, there was that little green book that Blaine Ray wrote, Blaine Ray and Conti Seeley wrote, Fluency Through TPR Storytelling. Now, I'd heard something about TPR as total physical response, and that was all I'd heard. But that was it. My mentor teachers didn't know anything about it. The teachers in the department at Texas High didn't know anything about it. So, it wasn't ever mentioned. And So yeah, that happened. Then the Army needed my services again, so I had to go back and to give up that job. I was there for about a year at Texas High. But yeah, and back to that little green book. The little green book was in the classroom, and I remember looking at it, flipping the pages, and like, oh, okay, and setting it down because I'm a textbook teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and so I did another year's service with the U.S. Army. Came back, and they'd already hired somebody in the position at Texas High, which I understand that there's that job safety measures that we have in place and all that. It's no big deal because there was a position over at Arkansas High, which is right across the border, 2 miles. Because Texarkana is a twin city, and so yeah, so I went across the border, started teaching at Arkansas High. Arkansas High was also a textbook school, um, and I taught there, and I taught there for about 10 years. Um, and like as I was saying in our pre-interview, I taught that book so much that I have pages memorized that I can tell you where this is at in this book, where this particular word is, what section, what page, what column, right or left. And then I left Arkansas High and I went back to Texas and I taught at a small school called DeKalb High School, Independent School District, and it was also a textbook school. So I'm like in my element, textbook, yay. But it really wasn't working. It's like you could tell that the kids were like, oh my God, we're going to go to this page, memorize this vocabulary, do the activity, da da da. And honestly, the kids weren't really learning, I don't think. They were learning, but it was just rote memorization. And so every school that I went to, that little green book by Blaine Ray was at. Somebody somewhere had went to one of his things and picked up a copy, but I don't know if they did anything with it. But they left it there in that classroom, and so it was at DeKalb, and then I was looking for improvement and more salary. Honestly, I was looking for more money, as every teacher does. We try to find those opportunities to make more money, and so there was a position in Memphis that paid considerably more. And so I was like, you know what? Let me go for it. And so I interviewed and I got a job in 2018 in Memphis at Cordova High School, where I am now. When I got to Cordova, I discovered really quickly that Memphis Shelby County School District, we are a CI district, not TPRS, but CI. And so as well as they understand what CI is, they and so there was a lot of me for that first year I'm at Cordova High School in Memphis that I'm playing, teach Spanish by the seat of my pants because I don't have resources. I don't have a textbook to refer to. Now, we do have a curriculum guide here in Memphis Shelby County Schools that says, it's divided into 4 units, unit 1, unit 2, et cetera, and specifically things that they want level 1 students to learn, level 2, 3, 4. And they do this curriculum guide for all the languages taught in the district, everything from Spanish to Arabic and Chinese, and German and French. And I'm trying to remember the other languages that are taught. But there's several languages taught, at least commonly taught languages. But so it's a blanket curriculum guide. And so you as a teacher, you get it, and you have to figure out like, what language do I need, what words and phrases and all that do I need to teach to be able to, make them happy at the district level that I'm teaching the curriculum. And so that first year that I'm teaching via the curriculum guide, and there's a lot of support in the district. There was a lot of support from the advisor. Her name was Jane Davis at the time. She's no longer with us. She since retired. My department, I was just a teacher at the time, and I had a lot of support from them. They were great ladies, and they are still great ladies. And but it was still a bit miserable because I'm trying to make it work and teach without a textbook. And I had my first evaluation, which I did not understand the system that we use here in Tennessee. uh, and and so I didn't score very well on it, and that bothered me because there's a competitive side to me. I want to be a great teacher. I want to be the best possible teacher for my students, and um, and so I didn't like that. And then over the course of that year, I had a few more evaluations. They were mediocre at best. Um, and so finally, spring break gets here, and right before spring break, we do the portfolio, and the portfolio is where a selection of 12 of our students are chosen to demonstrate their speaking, their reading, their writing, and their reflection piece on how how well they understand the language. Um, and so I submitted that, and had to wait for the results to come that summer. But then we went to spring break, and over spring break, I decided, because Blaine Ray's Little Green Book is in that classroom. It's there. I mean, that book has followed me. I'm trying to, it's like it's just right there. It's always in every classroom that I've ever taught in. I pick it up, I'll look at it, say, oh, that's cute, and I'll set it right back down. Well, that spring break, I said, you know what? Let me take that sucker home and read, because I got to figure something out. I got to make a change. It's not working. And I've done moved my family from Southwest Arkansas, Northeast Texas, all the way to Memphis. I've got to do something, and because I want to, it's a good job. It's a great place to be. And so I read the book, and I said, you know what? Let me try it. So I went on the TPRS books. I watched some videos online on YouTube with TPRS books. I got their first. I got the resources there. I got the Spanish one resources. I got the CD and downloaded the PowerPoints and and it's great, the system that Blaine Ray and Craig Shihai and all them and Von Ray created, that there was all those resources, those support resources. And so we came back from spring break, and I looked at my kids and I said, okay, y'all, so welcome back from spring break. And I told them, I said, y'all, my philosophy is this: fourth quarter, we just got to make it till May 31st, and we're out for the summer. So I like to use fourth quarter as my experimentation quarter. I like to see, let's try something different. So I want to teach via a story, and I want to teach y'all a story. And I did all the buy-ins. I did everything. I found as many resources to help me understand the process. And so I started teaching. And midway through the story, and I started teaching that very, very first story, George quería una Coca-Cola. So I did it in the past tense. George wanted a Coca-Cola. And so I started teaching it. And midway through the story, my kids were a little bit annoyed. And they were like, Profe, why haven't you been doing this whole time? We understand it. This is easy. We like this. I'm like, I didn't know how. And I was honest, because my kids, if you're a teacher and you teach in Memphis, you know that Memphis kids are different than kids around the nation, I believe, in that they can spot a fake a mile away, and they will call you out on it. And so I didn't know how, and I didn't want to be fake with you guys. And so they enjoyed it, and I kept doing it. And the biggest grouch that the kids had in the story that George wanted a Coca-Cola, and they couldn't figure out why this boy wanted a Coca-Cola. And it opened up the avenue to introduce different vocabulary and different ideas. And for example, we had George wanted a Coca-Cola because there was absolutely nothing in the entire state of California to drink. There was a drought, and they enjoyed that element. And the kids we were co-creating the story together. We would get to a point, and the kids were like, why? And I said, tell me, y'all create it. Give me an idea. And so they gave me an idea. And so we'd add it to the story. And eventually that George story, over the course of that quarter, became huge, became long. And the kids were getting it, and they were speaking back. And then we do like retells. I would retell the story and just ask them to close their eyes and listen to me retell the story, to ask. And then, I do a 5-finger check, 5 fingers if you totally got it, 1 finger, I'm very, very frustrated, I'm not getting it, et cetera, et cetera. 3, I can do it with help. And so there was a lot of 3s and 4s. There was a couple of 5s. not, and there were, I think maybe one one fingered kid, and he just simply wasn't paying attention, fell asleep or whatever. So he missed out. Yeah, duh, you're gonna be frustrated. You got to pay attention. You got to buy in, and but they enjoyed it, and so we finished the George story up, and then we went into the mini readers where it was like this kid named Ed wants a pizza, and this kid named Rick wants a Xbox. This boy named Bart wants a cat, and since excuse me, I get choked up, and then this other boy named Ben wants an igloo, and we did those, and the kids, they were reading and they were enjoying the heck out of it. And so summer gets here. So the end of the quarter, da da da. We've had a successful quarter. The grades have gone up. The kids can do stuff. They've enjoyed it. And so summer gets here. We go home for the summer. Well, that summer 2019, I had seen where there was a national TPRS conference going to happen in Chicago, and I said, you know what, I'm going. And I talked to a fellow teacher here at the time here in Memphis. Her name was Kirshna Washburn, and great lady, awesome teacher. And she decided to go with me to the TPRS conference because she wanted to find out more too, because we constantly talked about it. She taught at another school in the district, and I would talk to her every day about like what I was doing in my class, what she was doing, da da da, and she wanted to find out more. And so we both went to the NTPRS conference in Chicago. Um, and it was amazing. It was 500 plus people there at this hotel. And I was just like, holy mess. All these people do this? Wow. And it felt so awesome to be a part of something like that. And so I learned a lot. I went to every breakout session. I went to Scott's breakout session. I went to a breakout session with Craig Shihai, with Jeremy Jordan. Like, I'm meeting up to people that like I had watched their videos on YouTube and used their videos on YouTube in my classroom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was fanboying out really badly. It's like, oh my God, that's you. That's Jeremy Jordan. And it was a neat experience. Speak with Blaine and everybody there. And so I came back from that training, and the school year started, and I immediately started teaching TPRS that day one that we got back after I went through all the rules and procedures in the classroom. I started teaching George Wants a Coca-Cola again. And my kids from the previous year had came by my classroom, and when they came by my classroom, they walked in, they was like, and they saw what we were doing. They saw it projected on the wall. There's George, da da da, and they were annoyed. They were like, "Profe, why are you doing this with them now? You made us wait till the end of the year." And well, it's because I didn't know how then, and they were annoyed. Like, it's not fair. We had to wait. They need to wait. I said, no, we can't do that. And so my current kids, the 2019-20 kids, they were like, what? But they had already bought in, and we were reading and we were doing all this. And I had kids who, they were low level readers in English. They were not very strong readers at all. I had kids who were in those not so stellar organizations outside of school. We call them gangs. They were in my classroom, and they were very hardcore, and I would pair everybody up to read with a partner, do some volleyball reading back and forth. And a lot of kids did not want to work with those kids and did be their partners because either they were intimidated or whatever. And so I was like, hey, would you be my partner? And to those kids. And this one boy, he was very reluctant. I said, come on. And he and I started reading together. And you could almost see like this light bulb went off in his head that, oh my gosh, I can understand this. This is easy. And there were other people that were in his organization in the classroom, and they were watching this happen. And so the next time we decided to read with a partner, like all these kids in that group wanted to read with me. And like, can I read with you? Can we a big group? I was like, yeah, sure, come on. And so that became the good moment right there, in that, the teaching through reading and storytelling works. It works so good. Then whatever that was. but it works. And those kids, like they had better grades in my class than they had in their English class, and which I always enjoy. Um, but they understood Spanish, and it just went on. And then sadly, unfortunately, we had COVID pop up in 1920, and then so our district decided to dismiss for the end of the for the second semester. We decided to dismiss and go home and and call it a wash. Um, that summer, we did try to do a little bit of online material with the kiddos with Microsoft Teams and all that, uh, to varying degrees. Um, as the district worked it out because they needed to get laptops for the kids, because we were not a one-to-one district at the time. Um, and then so the coming year, 2021, yeah, we became a one-to-one district, but we were doing that first bit of the school year, at home, asynchronous and online learning. And so I was teaching George via this platform, and my TPRS stories that way. And also at the time, Blaine Ray contacted me and asked if I wouldn't mind, teaching with them, teaching stories online with them as well. And so I would do my day job, teaching my kiddos, my current kids, and then at a certain time log in and start doing stories with Blaine Ray. So I'm getting more and more training with TPRS, and I'm getting it from the guy who created it, and it's wild. And then like every opportunity I had to go to a training, whether it was via Blaine or via Vaughn or Craig or anybody, Jeremy, I would go to it, and I'd get the certificates, and I would do everything I could to learn more because, like I said earlier, I want to be the best teacher for my kids. I want to be, proficient so my kids will do well. So ever since then, uh, my evaluations via the Tennessee system, the TIM rubric, uh, teach effectiveness measure. Um, it went from that miserable score I had my first year to I'm making fives. It's five is the highest score we can make, and I'm making fives. Um, and I'm not trying to brag. It's just TPRS and the CI method, especially the TPRS part of it, teacher proficiency through reading and storytelling. It really leans into most of the teacher evaluation methods, and that if you do it that way, if you follow the formula, you do the process, you as a teacher, you're going to score extremely well on the rubric. And whatever the rubric is, because it's involving the kids. We do the gradual release of responsibility, whereas I do it, we do it, you do it with a partner, and then finally you do it by yourself. And all of that is straight up like it's like the Blaine Ray model right there. It's like that TPRS model. It's like I'm going to show you, I'm going to model it, I'm going to demonstrate the thingy. There was a boy. The boy is George, and then we're going to do it together. I'm going to circle it. I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions. I'm going to ask you individually. I'm going to triangle that question or triangle that statement, and then so the element that I had to introduce and is I wanted my kids to ask each other questions. So that was the you do together. And so I created questions in that year. I created questions, and I would display the questions like, "Okay, guys, now I want y'all to ask each other questions based off everything we know in the story." And they loved it. They were asking questions back and forth, and they couldn't remember. So, can you go back to the story real quick? And I'd flash back to the whatever we read. Okay, look and find it. Okay, good. And I'd go back to it. So now I ask the question again. And so they got the practice of asking each other questions, and it's grown in my practice. It's grown to the point where I've got my kids this year with no prompting on my part. They are creating questions, and these are level 1 Spanish kids, and we're in the 8th week of the quarter for this year, and these kids are asking questions of me. There might be a few grammatical errors in the question, but you can understand what they're trying to do with it. And they're trying to ask a question, and they're trying to create a question. It's not just a rote memorized question like, what's your name? et cetera, et cetera. It's they're trying, and it's neat to hear because that's the effectiveness of them learning via a story and language in context. Yeah. So sorry, is that enough?
Yeah,
I
that
will
was
talk.
amazing.
I will talk a lot about it.
Well, we can hear your enthusiasm, and that's what's really really great to hear. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story, because my story kind of mirrors a little bit of what your story was. Um,
Uh-huh.
Except I started in 2001, right after 9/11. I started late in the year, October. They were desperate need for another teacher. They had too many students and not enough teachers, so they hired me part-time. And it was not a CI school. I didn't even know there was no CI. It wasn't called that back then. All there was
Hmm.
TPRS, or textbook, and it was all textbook. I didn't know what TPRS was, and they threw me to the wolves. I had no idea what I was doing. I was on an emergency permit, which means I had not gone through teaching school yet. I just had a bachelor's,
Hmm.
and so they let me teach, which was a mistake on their part, because I had no idea what I was doing. I walked into that class and I opened the textbook and I just taught the way that I was taught in my language, because I took in high
Exactly.
school
Yeah.
French, German, and Spanish. And so, and I sucked at it. I was bored. They were bored. We were both asleep in the class. It was horrible. I remember one of my students told me, he goes, I look like a scared rabbit walking in that first day. I was terrified in there. I had no
Uh-huh.
idea what I was doing. I had no business being in that classroom whatsoever. And if they weren't desperately looking for a teacher, I probably would not have been hired. Um,
Hmm.
as I said, it was a part-time position. There's only 2 periods, no benefits, no very little pay. So, there weren't a high demand of teachers trying to fill that position.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I was like you, at the end of that first semester, Christmas break, I was like, this is not working. I cannot do this for the next 30 years. It's just not going to
Mm-mm.
work. So I found something. They put us in something called LA Stars. I was teaching in Los Angeles, and um, Louis, I think his last name was Anderson or Armstrong. I forgot. I'm horrible with names, so I apologize, Louis. But he taught us a story in Quechua, and I still remember parts of that story now. 25 years later, I remember parts of this story, and I thought there's something to this, but no one
Hmm.
explained to me what TPRS was or what it was. So I did some research. I found Blaine Ray back then, and I had to pay for everything myself. I bought all the books that I could buy. There was no trainings yet available. I took my first training that
Hmm.
summer, and second semester I went in, completely full-fledged. I jumped everything I had into it, and it was working. It was hard. It was difficult for
Hmm.
me. We were in a textbook. We were in an old textbook. Way back then, and we were in the travel chapter. So I went and found in Blaine Ray's books all the travel stories I could
Hmm.
find and put them in there, and I had to teach stupid words like gaviota and algas marinas, seaweed, and seagull. I mean,
Oh
these really
my
high
gosh.
frequency words. And but it was working. And my principal told me, he goes, I don't know what you did between
Uh-huh.
first semester and second semester, but you weren't on the track to be rehired after first semester, because it just wasn't working. But whatever you're doing now, keep doing that, because now you're on the track to get rehired. So just kind of like you and your evaluations, mine went
Hmm.
completely up, and it really wasn't me, it was the method. And as I said, I didn't even have any official training. I joined the More TPRS list, which was way back when, what we had, before the Facebook groups that we have now. That was the
Hmm.
Yahoo group that we did. I had that. I had the TPRS books that we had, that I had bought from Blaine Ray, and I didn't get
Hmm.
my first workshop until that summer, and that was with
Hmm.
Karen Rowan. And then the following summer, I did it with Susie Gross. Um, and I didn't even go to my first NTPRS until 2007, because
Hmm.
in California, we did not get paid. Well, you could get paid year round, but I was getting paid so little. They would have to take like $700 or $800 out of my paycheck to pay for that summer, and I couldn't afford that to pay my rent. So,
No,
LA
yeah.
was very expensive, and so I needed all that money. So I had to work summer school during the summertime to be able to keep my finances going. And it was always funny because a lot of people in LA couldn't do the year round either. And so you'd see them. Our first paycheck would come at the end of September, and they'd be all like brown bagging it with little skimpy things. And we all lost a lot of weight before October came. When
Hmm.
that first check came, we were all like, "Ooh, we can eat again," because we were all desperate for to
Those
spread our
struggle meals were
salaries out.
real. Oh,
Yes,
yes.
to spread our salaries
It was
out.
a great
So I had
it
a
was a
very
great value
similar
diet.
story to you, but I only did textbook for one semester and I
Oh,
sucked at
okay.
it. And I completely
Yeah.
sucked at it. And after that,
Oh,
I've worked
I
at TPRS schools all along.
mhm. Yeah, no, I was great at the textbook thing, but when you get in an environment where you don't have one, you're like, "What do I do?" Um, um, and it was a it wasn't a difficult switch from textbook to TPRS and CI. Um, at least for me. And I know everybody's situation will be a little bit different, but if you embrace the story and just relax and speak, I mean, I got to stay in the target language more. I get to stay in the target language more as a TPRS CI teacher now than I ever have. You know, it's 90 to 95% of the time I'm in Spanish, but the thing about it is 100% of it's comprehensible or comprehended by the kids, and 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 they enjoy it. It's like I was Friday. We're playing this wonderful little game that I've discovered called No es justo. It's not fair, and there was a question that came up, and I saw the question, and before I asked the question to the kids, I prefaced it with some background information, and in Spanish, and my kids are like they're tracking. They're like, "Yes, we got every detail you just said." Now, okay, and then I asked the question. They knew the answer to the question, and so it's being able to stay in the target language. And then, so anyway, but yeah, a little bit back like how TPRS is coming to my school. So I started doing TPRS, and there's this wonderful teacher down the hall from her. Name is Javella Johnson. She is my sister from another mother. She is rocking awesome. Um, she had always talked about when I started doing TPRS. She was curious, and she had always wanted to try it, but she always seen it as so much work, and then she saw that the way I was doing it, and I guess because she had been to some trainings with Blaine there in Memphis, and I think back in the 2000s, earlier part, a few years ago, but she thought it was just a lot of work, and so I started showing her the way I was doing it and all this, and she's like, okay, and then finally she decided she's going to embrace it. And she started trying to teach, and she started teaching her first George story. And then it was like she'd come in my room like, David, it's magic. It's like magic. The kids, they're getting it, they're getting everything. They understand it. It's like magic. And and I know our world language advisor at the time, and as I said earlier, Jane Davis, she came to my classroom as she was doing her um, check-ons on all the teachers in Memphis. She came in my classroom. She saw what I was doing. She is not an, a fan of TPRs, and uh, she does like CI, but she's not a fan of TPRS. And she said that doesn't go with our curriculum, but it does, because everything that's in our curriculum guide you can put in a story, and that's how it works. It's and because you're telling the story, you're creating language, you make it in context, and I'm not having the kids memorize. My name is, your name is, his birthday is, da da da. But we're putting in the story, and so when the portfolio team came around again, I made a five, and then my first portfolio was not a five. It was like a three. It was an ugly three, and but I made a five. The next year, my next portfolio I made another five, and another five, and another five, because the kids are able to use the language. So, and then as Chavella started seeing me do TPRS, and she embraced it, you know, it's kicking it. So now we're going to the DLDs, the district learning days, and the kids, and we're talking up TPRS at the district level. And so right now we're going to do a book study, and it's like it is a bit like pulling teeth in our district to get change to happen, because the previous lady, she was not a fan of TPRS, but we've got new people in charge now, and so letting them see the results. The proof is in the pudding, and so we're doing a book study on Blaine's book, And I told our new advisor, I said, hey, if you want somebody to lead the book study, hey, I'm your guy. I can do it. I will lead it. And because I'm pushing it, it's pushing it so hard for it to happen. And and she, so hopefully that'll happen very soon. But yeah, but there's a lot of teachers who understand, because I showed it like one day at one of our DLDs. We had some downtime or something happen, and the presenter said, okay, look, my stuff's not working. Would anybody like to present anything? And me being the guy that I am, and I love to volunteer, I say yes. And I have my laptop, and let's give me that HDMI cord. Boom, plugged it in. All right, so and I started teaching my first TPRS lesson to a group of teachers, and um, and I said, okay, look, I know the majority of y'all are Spanish teachers. Great, love y'all. Who are my non-Spanish teachers? My German teachers, my Chinese teachers, my Arabic teachers. That are, all of y'all come to the forward, come to the front. And so I started teaching the George story to non-Spanish speakers, to non-Spanish teachers, and doing that whole TPR thing. Now, mind you, I've had a couple of years of training now, and so my presentation is much better. And like after I was done, they were like, "Okay, we want to know more. We want to know more." And so I asked, like, who would like to know more? And I got a lot of feedback that yes, we want to know more. So it's trying to get them to push the leadership to say, "Hey, we want more training." I mean, I would love to have Blaine, have you, have all the people who can do it come into Memphis and give our district a good training. And I think that's what we need to let our district see that this is easy, this is magic, and the kids will be much more engaged. Because I want to build a program where the kids, they're not just satisfied with saying, okay, I've taken my 2 years of world language, I'm done. I want to push them to take 3 years, 4 years, to go on into the AP program. Um, we have we're doing the syllabi literacy in Tennessee. Um, and one of my goals is to get more kids, especially at Cordova High School, taking the stamp test and earning their seal. And so I think through TPRS and all that, I think it's totally possible. All the teachers, and that's one of our goals. That's one of our pushes at Cordova High School. Now, that being said, yeah, I am the department head over at Cordova High School. And the way I became it is because I am that guy that will volunteer and will come up with new things. The previous department head, uh, she decided that she wanted to go to another school and teach. And one day we're at a meeting, and she announced that she was going to leave and that we need a new department head. And everybody in the department, there's 7 teachers, all pointed, okay, David's going to be that. And I'm like, wait, do I get a decision in this? And they were like, nope. And I'm like, but that's who I am. And because they know that I am that guy. Like once I started with TPRS, and it relaxed me, and I'm much more, you know, forthcoming with information and helping people out. And so they appreciated that. So yeah, that's how they're getting that. So I get to use that platform to push it at the other schools. Um, and there's other schools in the district where there's teachers that I spoke with this summer who want to know more about TPRS and are trying to teach it over at other schools, teach the method. Since it's not a curriculum, but it's a method. And and that's what I have to get them to understand. This is not curriculum. TPRS is not a curriculum. It's a method of teaching that language. And it's getting the kids to learn. You can do it with anything. And so there's teachers. I've got teacher friends who have come to my class and in the afternoons, and so we want to know more, and I show them how TPRS works. And I've gotten them to go to the trainings with Craig or with Blaine, and they're starting to do TPRS over at their schools. So it's starting to grow in Memphis. It's there. It's in its infancy. I mean, I think it's the sperm hasn't met the egg stage, but it's growing. And the thing about it is it's the neat thing is how well the kids, and that's what it's about. It's the kids and how well they understand the language and they can figure out stuff. And it's all the incidental vocabulary that they learn through reading the story. And it's words that I haven't taught, but they figure it out as they're reading it in context. And like it's everything that Krashen talks about in all of his stuff. It's like how effective it is that somebody will learn 10 times faster through reading than they will listen to some old teacher talk, 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 talk. Um, and so my parents appreciate it. Like during parent teacher conferences, I'm that teacher that I will bribe my kids to have their parents come in. I was like, if your parent comes to parent teacher conference to see me, you get a free 100 in Power School. And so these kids will pile it. I mean, parents for days, and like nobody else in the building has parents coming. Like, why do you have like 25 parents last night? Well, they like me. Um, so don't tell them your secret. It's in this. It's the secret sauce. It's in the recipe. Um, and so uh, anyway, these parents come. Like one night, the parents came in and it was a large group of parents. And typically, I'll try to meet individually, but you know what? Heck, that night there's a large group. I said, "Y'all come on in. Y'all have a seat." And it wasn't like I wasn't going to talk about like your kid has a bad grade because no, I just wanted to meet the parents and let them know. So y'all come on in, have a seat. So y'all heard about me. I'm David Rice. Nice to meet y'all. Da, 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 da. This is how I'm teaching your kid. And I started teaching the parents the George story or whatever story we was working on at the time. And I'm going to use the George story as my go-to. That's the story I taught. And the parents were like, "What? I get this. This is easy." And so the parents understood. So the feedback from my parents is they're happy that the kids understand. Um, um, and they realize like he makes it easy. How do you have a bad grade? Oh, you're not doing the work. Okay. And so it's I mean, it's that. I showed the parents like how easy the material is and how effective this is. So if you don't, and I do like that one thing that I read in Blaine's book, like it's not going to work for everyone, type thing for the kid, but because the kids has a buy-in, and it's about reducing that affective filter, and letting the kid understand like how easy it's so scaffolded. You start with that one sentence. There is a boy, and add to it, the boy is George. Add to it, George is in California. Add to it, keep adding, as you've gone over and asked like 10 questions about that one statement. And it scaffolds it up so well so that when you hand them a story to read, they might be like, "Oh my gosh, it's a pretty long story. I can handle it," and they can read it. And so it builds that up. And so it helps the kids become not so resistant and much more comfortable with the process. And so they understand everything. So I would say that my kids know way more now than my kids that I taught a few years ago, textbook wise. Know way more. Like, I will get kids from other schools, and I'm not downing. I'm not calling out that teacher that taught that child or whatever. Um, um, but they'll come into my class and they're like overwhelmed. They're like, "Whoa, y'all know so much more than we do," and or that da da da. And I said, "Yeah, just relax." Like I got a new student Friday. She's a great young lady. I enjoyed talking to her. And I said, just relax. And even my kids in class they even looked at her and said, "Okay, look, just relax. It's going to be okay. You'll be lost a little bit at first. You'll catch it. You'll get it really fast." And these are my kids saying this, and not just me. I'm saying it's true. You will get this. And I kind of back them up on it. And so tomorrow we're going to start our first story. She's going to start her first story, and it's going to be Bart wanted a cat. And we're doing it in the past tense with them. And these are level 1 kiddos. And that was one thing that the previous district advisor didn't like, is because I was teaching stories to Spanish 1 kiddos in the past. I was adding elements of the subjunctive in it. And because it was language, it's, how do we speak language? We don't like, "Okay, I'm going to have a conversation with you today, and it's all going to be in the present tense." No, we intermix tenses and moods, and all of that is in a conversation in context. And so she came in, she saw me teaching the past tense. She said, "Wait, past tense is not taught to Spanish too?" I'm like, "What? No, it's taught here now." My kids understand it. They can tell you, "El chico tenía 15 años." The boy was 15 years old. Now he's 45, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big jump in age. But that they can, I mean, they can get it. And so they can handle it so long as it's in context and it makes sense. If it's just abstractly, like we're going to do the imperfect tense today, that's going to, we don't even teach the imperfect tense like in those terms of those terms in English class. We don't teach grammar in English class. So why would you teach grammar in a world language class? I mean, yeah, I get it. As if you're going to become a Spanish teacher or a world language teacher, you do need to know those grammar terms. That would be great. But let that happen at college. Let that happen at university. Right now, as a learner, you're a level one kiddo. You don't need to know how to conjugate 500 different verbs. No, it's you don't need to know like I'm introducing like in the stories now, like, thanks to, Chat GPT, I can take a story, like one of the stories, one of the TPR stories, and I can kind of expand it a little bit with Chat. And like the most recent story, it's got a couple elements of the subjunctive in it. And Aya, which there might be a Coca-Cola in New York. And my kids, they didn't blink at it as they were reading it. And the statement, when, like it's possible that there might be a Coca-Cola in New York. And es posible que haya una Coca-Cola en Nueva York. And my kids, they didn't blink at it. They read it and understood it. And it's like, what's Aya? They didn't even care because they understood it. It made sense. Like I think the thing was the sentence that I added in the story as we're creating, like um, the boy is hopeful that his friend his friend's friend has a Coca-Cola in Atlanta or whatever, right? So there's going to be Tenga, and it's going to be more subjunctive. They're not blinking at it. They didn't ask what it might be. They just read and understood it, and that's language. Language should be like that. It's not compartmentalized. Like I must teach you sales. I must teach you. If you see ojalá da da da, no, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to do it, and you'll see, and you'll match it up. How do you learn Spanish if you were born into that community? As you hear it. And
Absolutely.
I mean, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Um, great explanations. I love what you're talking about. We have a question here from Karina.
Hey,
She
Karina.
says, if I'm just starting out, what one resource should I start with? I can get easily overwhelmed, as we all can. Do you have a suggestion
Oh.
for? I know what you're going to say, but go ahead. I'll have some suggestions too.
Okay. Hey, Karina. Great question. Like, and that was me a few years ago. Um, Best thing I can tell you to do is, and I'm not trying to plug any product by no means. And I think, Scott already says like, yeah, I kind of know where he's going to go is I would go to either immediate immersion or TPRS books, look at their product line. And like, look, I'm going to show it. There's my camera. See this book? This is the Green Bible. Okay. This one is the 7th edition. It's a big thick one. They've got another one. It's the 8th edition. And Blaine Ray has came out with another one called TPRS 2.0. Those two books, start reading them and just try to apply it. If you get one of their, if you go to TPR's books, and by no means this is not sponsored, that I'm sorry, I have a lot of friends who are influencers and they say that when they're doing their stuff. This is not sponsored. But if you go there in whatever language get there, go to the online portal or whatever and just get like the free starter thing. And it comes with, it's the neat thing, it comes with a teacher guide. And the teacher guide is well laid out in that, it's going to talk about circling. It's going to talk about triangle, and will give you starter questions to ask and to ease your way through it, right? Step-by-step process. You will not get overwhelmed. If you just go step by step, one question at a time, you won't get overwhelmed. That's my biggest fear when I start out doing stuff is I don't want to be overwhelmed. But if you'll be very, very methodical with it, you'll be okay. And your kids will respond and they will do so well at it. I know that Scott has his one verb stories, which I like. I got those, and I've used, and I've got another teacher friend in my department. She's doing TPRS now with the kiddos, and she uses those with her kids. And so yeah, um, whatever resource, just a little bit at a time, just and ask questions. Start one sentence at a time, circle it, ask the whole class, you know, yes, no, maybe so answers, and then triangle that next question, that statement with a bunch of kids, ask a bunch of questions, just one kid at a time, and then move on. But don't spend a lot of time. Does that make sense? Did I help you?
Absolutely. And I was just going to add some others. So, yes, there's TPRS Books has got, that's the originator, Blaine Ray, and his materials have come a long way. He's got the slides that will help you walk you through step by step by step.
Mm-hmm.
Somos is another one that's by Martina Bex, and you can get that at comprehensibleclassroom.com. A slow start, and these are older books, but I still recommend them, is, I'll put them up here, TPRS in a Year at benslavic.com. I like that one because it's one step that you work on and you master, and then you move on to the next step. So he breaks it down that, and in a year you'll get really good at it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I did not understand PQA at all when it first came out. When they talked about it, I didn't understand it. They never demoed it in a demonstration. They went right to the story. So I skipped that step for many, many years. My first 5 years, I skipped it until I got another Ben Slavic book called PQA and a Wink. And then I understood what it was. That's where the term circling with balls comes from. Um, I learned so much from that. And I hate using terms that you have to explain what they are before you can do them. And so PQA,
Mm-hmm.
triangling, circling, they're not um, easily identifiable, or what do we call it? They're not, and there's a word I'm forgetting and I can't think of right off the top of my head right now, but they're not obvious to what they're doing. You have to explain those. So I
Mm-hmm.
like to call PQA, it's just a conversation with a kid. It's that, why come up with a whole new word? It's just a conversation. And
Yeah.
triangling is interviewing the characters. Why come up with a whole new word for it to go around there? And circling is just asking scaffolded, differentiated questions. So I hate making up words that you have to explain for people to understand. But those are great recommendations, and I do like how Blaine, in his newer books, in his PowerPoints, how he is breaking it down step by step by step. Where we used to do things, we used to do 7 steps all in one class period when I started with the original TPRS was 7 steps. And I don't know how we all did it, but we did it in the beginning. And now it's down to 3 steps. And now he's broken it down in those PowerPoints. So if you really need it broken down step by step by step for you, then the books at TPRS Books would be the best option there, as David has been telling you. That's where that George story comes from. And they've got all the
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoints. You've just got to put the words to it. And a couple of things I want to add that, he was talking about. Um, you're talking about how much Spanish that you're using in your classroom now. And I had a kid who came from my class and then moved to a different district and said, Profe, in your class, we spoke Spanish with a little bit of English, but now I'm in a class that we speak English with a little bit of Spanish. Because really the only Spanish or language that would come out would be like reading the instructions out of the textbook, because it would all be instructing in the language. And so that was a big aha moment. And then another one, I told David that many years ago I did a workshop in Memphis. I've only done one workshop in Memphis, but I did a couple in Nashville. And I did one in Nashville. It was really a fun one. It didn't start out fun. I do my demos in German. That was my major, but I've lost a lot of my German because I don't get to use it. I teach Spanish. So I lose a lot of my German, and I'm always freaking out when I have German teachers in the room when I do my demonstration, because number one, I'm going to make mistakes and they're going to point them out. And number two, they don't get to feel the whole experience because they already know the language. And I had this one German, she was from Germany. Um, and the first thing she did was criticize my German question word posters, saying they're not capitalized. And I'm like, well, they're not in a sentence and they're not nouns, so they wouldn't normally be capitalized, just being a word out there. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a fun workshop. She's going to nitpick my German the whole way through. So I was like, this is going to be great. But at the end, she was dragged along. There was a young teacher in there who was a German teacher as well. She dragged her along to this conference. She didn't really want to go. So we did this workshop. It was a 3-day workshop. But at the end, she was transformed. At the beginning of that workshop, she said, I'm on my way out. I hate kids. I hate teaching now. It's changed so much. I am retiring.
Mhm.
I am out. And then at the end, she goes, I think I can do this for 5 or 10 more years. This is amazing at what they can do. And so it can be a life-changing event. And then she went back to her school district. I think it's Clark School. I don't know, something at Clark, I think I remember in there in the name of the school district. But they asked her to be, the ambassador for TPRS back then. And this was probably maybe 7, 8 years ago. And she just fell in love with it and got a whole new lease on teaching German.
Mhm.
And her kids were liking her better. She was liking her kids better. It makes it so much it's a whole change in the way that you're thinking. They always quote there's 4% kids can learn from a textbook and they end up being language teachers most of the time. But if you take 4% of a class of 30, it's less than one kid. And what do you think if your supervisors knew that you were only teaching to one kid out of the classroom to the exclusion of the other 29 in the classroom, they would say
Mhm.
that's bad teaching. But we are in this textbook because we've always had a textbook, or we need some scaffolding for ourselves to be able to teach, a structure to be able to teach, when we don't need that kind of stuff. And we actually hit more people, as David's shown with his kids. We hit more people when we leave that textbook behind. And think about it too from the really basic level, going, taking Krashen's ideas and thinking about it. No parent in the history of parenting has ever brought out a textbook to teach the language to their kids. What have they done? They have, I can't figure where my finger is supposed to go. Where is it? Here it is. Sing to your kids. You talk to your kids. You read
Mhm.
to your kids. Those are the things that you do. And in California, it's called the first five. You're supposed to do this with your kids to get them ready for kindergarten. Sing, talk, and read, which is exactly what TPRS and CI is all about. And look, all of
Mhm.
they have teach parents have a zero failure rate. There is not a single kid, unless they have a major brain issue, that doesn't learn language. They have a zero failure rate. There is not a single kid getting an F in from their parents from learning a language. But when we go to school, they try to teach us a whole nother way, an unnatural way to teach language. And TPRS is just one method of CI. There's lots of different ways, approaches to CI, but using CI to actually um, get back to that natural way of learning language, the way that
Mhm.
actually works and is foolproof. So if you can just talk to your kids in the target language, even Karina, if you've had no training, you've just talked to your kids and make sure that you're being understandable, you're going to win. And I know Blaine and everybody talks about staying in bounds, and I am the out of bounds teacher. I have never stayed in bounds in my life because I used to teach only exclusively level one. And on day one, everything's out of bounds. So
Mhm.
for me, I found a way to get around that, and my kids develop a lot faster because I'm not keeping this to like core 6 words of vocabulary. I'm expanding. I do make sure it's comprehensible. And how do I do that? I don't stop my language by translating myself, because then the kids always wait for the English. I will put up okay, Karina, thank you so much. You're so welcome. It'll be recorded, so you can watch the recording if you'd like to catch up on the end. So thank you so much. She says this is helpful and inspirational. Gotta run now. Um, so um, I put the words up on the board. So as I'm talking and I put up a new word that I need to tell a story, I'll put it up on the board. I know David talked about having a drought in California. That's why he needed to drink Coca-Cola. Well, drought is not a word in that my kids would know or ever know, but I needed that
Exactly.
word to tell the story. So I would put drought up on the board and I put the translation up there. I would point to it. This is a throwaway word. I don't expect my kids to ever remember this word. They just need
Hmm.
it in the moment to be able to understand the story, and then you don't lose them. And I do the subjunctive just like you, David. All the kids want to know is, what does the word mean? And if it's close enough to
Exactly.
a word they already know, it doesn't phase them. If it's completely new, then you put it up on
Hmm.
the board. But I is not much different from I. So if they already know I, they're not going to eat. They
Exactly.
don't even hear the endings. You know, Krashen and Bill Van Patten say kids, especially American kids, because we don't have endings, don't hear the endings. They only hear the root part of the verb. So they're only hearing I anyway. So they don't phase over it. They don't get upset or frustrated because they didn't hear that exact word before. The endings come much later for them to understand. And I love the way that you're talking about how you're getting your kids to understand and enjoy the stories and enjoy being
Hmm.
in class. It's so very important.
Yeah. Oh, and on the throwaway words, so I've got this one student this year, and she has introduced a new concept to her class, um, and it's a large class. There's 35 kids in the class, but it's a new concept, and she started it, and it's random. She calls it random vocabulary, and she's got a whole page, a notebook page. Couple, it's actually a couple now that's just random words that I'll throw up on the board, and like so she's not going to throw them away. She's going to hold on to them, but and it started this that list of vocabulary, those random words, those ayas and those sekias and all that, all the droughts and all those, they have started spreading across the classroom, and like they're sharing that vocabulary, so they're all pulling out going, oh, that one, and they're trying to use it, and so it's not because it's like, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and so yeah, there you go, good deal.
One, I was going to give you one idea that I got from Karen Rowan, and it's really great. I use this for my kids who lack focus, who have to really focus. I'll give them some kind of really absurd word that is like really off the wall, and their job is to find a logical place to get that word into the story.
Ooh.
So, like meatball,
Uh-huh.
where does that come from? But I give that one. I've done belly button. They have to find a way to get it. Can't just throw it out and just make it. It's got to you've got to find a logical way to get this word in there. So I'll give them the word, I'll give them the definition, and then
Uh-huh.
I give them the little paper and I go, so you got to focus and you got to get this word somewhere in my story, somewhere along the way. And I don't let them just get it in easily. They'll say, oh, he wants a meatball on his salad. No, 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 no. That was way too easy. So I'll say no, and I'll turn that down to make him focus a little bit more to find a way to get the meatball
Okay.
in there or something in there. I got that from Karen Rowan. I really like that. And I use that. I'll hand these little cards out with these words when I'm greeting my kids at the door to have them, especially I give out five a day to my kids that I know that lack focus, whether they are true ADHD kids or they're the kids who like to chat with their neighbors too much or whatever it might be where they're not going to be paying attention to me. I give them these words to help them stay focused because now they've got a goal. Their goal by the end of the period is, and if they can get that word to work in naturally, I give them candy. You talk about bribing your kids, I bribe them
Mm-hmm.
with candy. So to do that. And I've also
Same.
bribed my kids on parent teacher night. We do parent teacher night different in my school now. But before, when it was me, I used to teach the story to my parents every night. And I said, if your parent volunteers to act in my story, I would give you get out a drop a quiz pass. That's what I would do.
Oh,
So the
cool.
kids would, because I was so terrified I wouldn't get parents to volunteer. I needed parents to volunteer to do the story. So I needed at least four parents. So I said, if you bring your parents in and they volunteer to act, then you get this coupon. And it was
Hmm.
amazing because I got the parents to raise their hands. And so I got enough people to do it. And that was a good thing. So bribing
Awesome.
does absolutely work. Absolutely. Well, we're at our time. Do you have any final words you'd like to say, David?
No, I think I've talked enough.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, the biggest takeaway is I can think of is TPRS. The whole process that Blaine came up with, it works, and like it works, and it's so blank word effective. Uh,
Yeah.
and it is so effective. It's such an effective method, and my kids enjoy learning. I enjoy going to class and teaching. I take great pleasure in tweaking my PowerPoint every summer to make it a little bit nicer for them. Or like today, prior to this, I was tweaking tomorrow's lesson to make sure my PowerPoint slides long, and so they're getting it. So I'm scaffolding with them. It's the best method ever. It's
I
saved my career.
It saved mine too, and I agree. And I think it's most engaging and more fun for kids. Right now, I'm at a school where I am the only CI teacher. I
Mhm,
took this job because I trained this school in CI. So when I took this job, because I was going to move from middle school to high school, I thought they were a CI school until I got there, and then realized that they're not a CI school. They did not
mm-mm,
keep with the method. So I'm the only one, and so we've got this textbook, and so I just find ways to take my textbook because like people keep saying, TPRS is not a curriculum, it is a methodology, and I can apply
mhm.
it to anything. So I can take
Yeah,
that vocab I have to teach and the grammar I have to teach in my textbook, and I can apply it using
yeah.
CI methods
Yeah,
and TPRS.
yep.
It makes
That's
a big
exactly
difference.
it. Exactly it. Yes.
So that's a wrap on today's CI story with David Rice. You could see all the passion that he has for what he's doing and how he came from a textbook warrior to a CI superhero. If his journey proves anything, it's that you don't need a cape or a Pinterest perfect bulletin board to make CI work. You just need to start. If you love this conversation, don't forget to check out the CI Survival Kit at mm.us/survival. It's packed with ready to use tools and strategies that make your CI classroom run smoother, no magic wand required. And let's make sure you join us for the next CI story, where another teacher will share their wins, fails, and everything in between. Until then, keep it comprehensible, keep it fun, and keep those stories rolling.